Welcome to the Table Tennis Chump to Champ podcast. Follow our journey through the world of competitive table tennis as mediocre chump players hoping to one day become a champ. In this episode, we talk about equipment for chumps, what we started with, how we liked it, what we're currently using, and maybe, if we're brave, we'll make some chump to chump equipment recommendations. Without further ado, I'm Mike, and welcome to my co-host, Jeremiah.
Hello, everybody. Yay, good to be back.
It's been a while, but we're going to go with our monthly podcast now, even though we missed the first 3 months, but better late than never.
Yeah, well, the best way for our listeners to get notified is to subscribe and hit the notification bell. So if they're concerned about our cadence of when we produce these, that's how they can know when we produce one.
All right.
Where are we kicking this off, Michael?
Well, equipment. So what did you start out with when you started playing?
So when I first started getting into table tennis, right? You start in like your friend's basement, you don't have a paddle. But once I started like going to the club, I realized I had to have my own thing.
And so what was your first pro setup?
Oh, my pro setup? It doesn't count that I went to Dick's Sporting Goods and bought like off the shelf.
Is that what you started with at the club?
Yeah, that's what I started with.
Okay, so some people do that.
Yeah, so I had like one of those Dick's Sporting Good paddles. It's just like, what is it? Machine manufactured.
Okay.
Like you don't really think about it.
Do you remember what brand it was?
I feel like the name had like Optima in it or something.
Okay, so it wasn't like Stiga or Eula, like one of the table tennis,
or maybe it was Stiga. I don't remember,
Okay.
But ultimately it's just, they have like a lineup in Dick's Sporting Goods, and you just pick one of those, the one with the flashiest marketing, right?
And about how much did it cost?
I think it was like $40.
$40. Okay.
Yeah, which is interesting now that I like look back, because for $40 I could probably get like a decent rubber or something like that, like at least one side.
You could probably get like a low-end custom setup for $40 or $50.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for starting, I guess. I don't even remember. I can't even compare it to today, because I don't even remember how it felt at that time. Because when you're a chump, you're not really concerned about like how it feels.
Yeah.
So it would be kind of interesting now, what I know now.
Okay.
To go back and use that paddle.
And so how long did you use it for, and did you like it?
I don't even know how long I used it. Maybe like a year. I've probably used it a while until someone mentioned something.
And then so you were playing for a year, like in the competitive club with this Dick's Sporting Goods paddle.
Okay, maybe not like in the club. I think in the club I only played like 3 months, because someone finally commented and say like, oh, you should probably throw this away. Right. But before like entering into the club, where you're playing more casual with people, that's where I end up using it, and you're playing with other people who don't normally go to the club setting.
So then you go to the club, people tell you your equipment sucks.
Yep.
And you should get something else, like maybe some Tenergy and some Butterfly, ZLC, and whatnot. So what did you end up getting?
So that's exactly what happened. Every time someone suggests equipment to you, it's always like, get the fastest, craziest junk that you can get, and no one will ever be able to beat you ever.
Really? Even for a beginner, they recommended that to you?
Yeah. And I never understand. Like today, I just don't understand this, because it's just like, you're not a salesperson. You're not making commission off this. Why are you suggesting this super high speed rubber that like is going to do this person no good?
Well, maybe it's so they can keep beating you.
Yeah, because you'll just keep throwing the ball out because it's just too fast. Well, I don't remember who, but someone made a recommendation to me to like, oh yeah, don't get that. That is for advanced players. Also, the fact that like at this time, I didn't even know if I want to invest that much into it, right? The blade would be what, $200+. Each rubber would be like $80-$90 a side. I wasn't ready for that level of commitment. So I think I ended up just going with like some all wood paddle, like all wood for the blade. And then on each side, I started with Shriver.
Okay,
Shriver, which
interesting.
yeah, which is like $40 a side, and I,
Kind of expensive, yeah.
yeah, but it ended up being like this classic paddle, but I didn't know at the time. Like, dude, when you go look out
Okay.
on the market for buying a rubber on one of your paddles, it's ridiculous. There's so many options, and it's just, what do you get? So
Yeah.
just went by recommendation.
Okay. So you had your all wood with your striver on both sides. And how was that? Did you like it? How long did you use that for?
Oh, that I probably used for like a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So that lasted me quite a while.
And you felt
Uh,
that that was good? You would recommend it to other chumps?
it's hard to say. It's hard to say because I've been playing for I don't know how long now. And I personally am not an equipment junkie. So I'm usually like, I keep my equipment for quite a while, or at least as long as I don't break it. And I think other players are a bit more involved in what they use and what they choose and why they use it. But I'm of the philosophy that you shouldn't really care too much about it and just get something that fits you and just play with it. I mean, I play
Yeah.
at the club. People's like they'll let me use their paddle that are like the souped up ZLC with Tenergy, and it does feel faster. I will say it feels faster, but it also doesn't really improve or hurt my game.
Okay.
Like I don't see too much difference in my game when I play others. So,
Okay.
what about yourself? What are you doing? What are you doing over there, Michael, with your equipment?
Well, I guess I'll start from the beginning. So
Yeah,
in the beginning, I was just playing in the office and it was just a
yeah.
pre-made thing. And what I remember about that was like, we just got this like table and paddle set in the office. And at first, like it was like working, but after like a few months, like the rubbers died. So I think that happens a lot on these pre-made paddles. Like
Oh,
the
that's
rubbers just get like all dried out like really fast. And we weren't like putting the paddles in like bags or anything, we're just letting them sit out in the sun. So it got all messed up. And then I don't think we've like really realized it, because it's just like slowly messing up. But anyway, then after a few more months, when I first went to the club had like, they had some loaners. So I used the loaners and they were like, I feel like they were decent. I mean, I liked them at the time. It was like better than the pre-mades. I realized that,
yeah.
but at the beginning in the club, I wasn't, taking it that seriously. So I was just using the club loaner. But probably after, yeah, maybe a few months or 6 months or something, then I decided to invest or like get my first paddle. Actually, now I remember, and I think I discussed this in our first podcast. It was after like I wanted to join my first tournament, which was
Yeah.
like after I'd only been playing in the club for not that much, and I wasn't even a member. I was just going occasionally. But then this tournament was coming up, and I was like, all right, I just want to like try to buy a paddle and go to this tournament and
That's when
see
you
how it
got
goes.
Tenergy and ZLC Blade.
So I did not. So what I remember doing is like I just searched on the internet for what people said was good, and there was a lot of different things. I mean, now I will say like there's a lot of people talking about like Tenergy and stuff at the time, but what I read was for like beginners to not get Tenergy, but still there's like 500 different rubbers out there
Yep.
and people recommending like 499 of them, so I basically just sifted through and I decided on something, and I wanted to keep like within like a certain budget. Like I think I wanted to spend like like $70 or something like that, and that's for the blade, and two rubbers. So I do remember people were saying like striver and stuff, but that's like $40 each. So I'm like, that I don't want to spend that, and then plus a blade, that's like 100. That's over my budget.
Yeah.
So what I ended up after reading like for like 2 hours on the internet, I ended up going with Hurricane 3.
Yep.
Okay.
Funny enough, after my Shriver rubber, that's what I switched to. I don't want
Yeah.
to keep buying all these new rubbers that cost me $50 a side.
I remember at that time, I think we were both playing with Hurricane 3.
Yes.
And I think a bunch of like new members at the club we were all playing with Hurricane 3. Anyway, so I got this Hurricane 3, and I think what I read about it was like some people said the reason it's good for beginners is because you have to have the right form to make it work. So by starting with Hurricane 3, it's going to help you like develop a really good technique. So I'm like, well, I want to have good technique. Okay, that sounds great. That's exactly what I want. So I got the Hurricane 3. I got some wood paddle. I forgot what it was. And then on my backhand, I remember I got Mark V, which is similar to Striver and a little pricier, but I think a little cheaper. So I think still overall I spent like 75 or 80 bucks on this setup.
So Michael, you weren't thinking of like the hardness level, the throw angle, the rubber thickness, or whether
Well,
it's tacky Chinese rubber or like the European style rubber. You weren't
I
thinking of
didn't
that?
understand any of that. And so I was reading up and doing research and, people were talking about that. So I was getting some understanding, but I didn't really get it. Like I just didn't have a developed enough game. I was still like a complete noob. And so what people are saying about the throw angle and what the hardness, how that affects your game, like I didn't really get it.
I still don't get it. Please, Michael, explain it to me. I need desperate help over here.
So anyway, I got this Hurricane, and I'd like to hear what you think about Hurricane when you were starting out. But now, looking back, I think the Hurricane was absolutely the wrong rubber for me. And here's why. I think because like basically it's true that the Hurricane is hard, so you need to have like really good form and really get that like paddle acceleration to
Yeah,
be able to like get the top spin. And if you don't, it just like you aren't
yeah,
able to apply top spin. So I think naturally as a noob, I try it a few times, but naturally if it's not working, you adapt to something that's working. And for
which is
me with
like
the Hurricane 3,
is
it's
like a
just like
flatter
flat
hit.
hitting, just like
Yep.
trying to smash every ball you can. But then if there's like heavy backspin or it's too low, then you just hit it into the net. And
Yeah.
that's
And
basically what was happening to me.
yeah, and I would say looking back at my use of Hurricane 3, I would say I developed the same exact thing. So I actually switched back to like a European style rubber instead of like the tacky rubber. And I was having that problem where I was like launching them off the table because I was flat hitting them. So
Yeah.
instead of like doing a nice like, I don't know, angle to spin the ball, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I had the same experience.
Yeah. So I have to say I like disagree with that recommending like this hard rubber. I mean, the only exception I can think of is I guess if you're a junior and you're getting like coaching and like a training program like every week,
Yeah, to
maybe they're
make
going to
sure.
develop the good style for you. But for like regular chump players, I just feel like you have to like realize your chumpness and realize like you aren't going to be like Malon like tomorrow. So you don't need to start out with his rubber.
You will if you listen to this podcast. Literally tomorrow you will be my long after listening to this. So you're welcome. You are absolutely welcome.
All right. Well, I guess that brings us to the next thing, which is maybe then you said, Jeremiah, you switched back to a European rubber. So
I
what are
did.
you using now and how do you like that?
Today I am using Peter Corbell all wood butterfly.
Okay.
And then on each side, I'm using the same rubber, which is just a T-bar ELP.
Okay.
So you might ask, what made you choose this, Jeremiah? And it's recommendations. You
Okay.
know, like I said, I don't really switch my equipment very often. I think I've been having this for like 2 years now, maybe, and it feels good. I feel like I can get a good solid amount of spin on it. When the ball's high up and I smash it,
Okay.
so I try not to change my equipment too often, but I don't know what you think about that. I'm sure you've also run into those people that seem to change their equipment like every week, and you're like, bruh, how are you able to afford this? But
So I also don't change my equipment that often. I have changed a few times because I feel like I overall agree. I just want to like work on my game and stick with something consistent. But sometimes I'm wondering like, well, how do I know if this is good for me if I didn't try something else? So due to that, I've switched a few times.
you just have to be
So
careful because I feel like that's what gets you down the rabbit hole of like, oh, what if I try
yeah,
this rubber this month? Oh, what about this one?
yeah. So after my Hurricane 3, I switched to I don't remember the order though. But I've basically tried like two different things. I've tried like a faster rubber and then like a more, I don't know, slower rubber, I guess.
Yeah.
And also like a, I guess, hybrid rubber. So I think at one point I tried similar to your T-bar ELP, but
Yeah.
I tried the MXP, which is a much faster
Yeah, that's
one.
the faster one.
And I heard it was like a cheaper alternative to Tenergy. And based on what I knew at the time, I knew a lot more. This was probably like 2018, 2019. I knew maybe this wasn't best for me, but I really just wanted to try it, because it's like I just want to feel what the fastness and the bounciness is like, and
Yeah.
just trying someone else's paddle for like 2 minutes, you don't quite get the experience.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I tried it, and in some ways it immediately helped me because like you don't need to like get the full stroke, and sometimes like you're caught off guard, but you just do a quick thing. And with the hurricane, it would just not work. But
Yeah,
with
I would just
this,
die immediately.
it would just shoot off like a good shot, and I'd even like win the point after getting like caught out sometimes. But after using it for it was like a few months. One, I think maybe the rubber wears out fast. That's one thing that I've read about MXP. Like it like dies fast. So maybe that's part of it. But secondly, I think I could feel that it was enforcing like bad habits in me, like making my technique even worse from how bad it already was.
Oh, what
Um,
what do you mean? Just by like shortening your stroke? So instead of doing a
yeah,
full
because I
stroke, you're
didn't
just
because with the hurricane, like I needed to at least try to do a good stroke. But with the MXP, like this like wimpy little quick like dinky thing would just give a good shot. So I was more like doing that, which I don't think was helping me. So then I think I switched to like a hybrid rubber, which is like it was a medium hard sponge and then like a semi tacky top sheet. So it was kind of like
I've
hurricane,
never
but
heard
a
of
little
this.
less. Um, it was called like Yasaka Rising Dragon or something. And I think
Oh,
the
okay.
reason for that was I was thinking, well, hurricane's not good for me, but I'm used to the hurricane. So let me transition to something a little bit less rather than something way different. And that was okay, but back I was using that until kind of recently. But as you know, I've been talking lot about. I still wasn't that happy with my form, and I think it was better than the Hurricane, but still not that great for me. It was still like I think too hard. And then more recently, before the 2021 teams tournament, I switched to the how do you say it? Roxa
Oh,
7.
isn't it like RAXXA or something like that?
Yeah, it's a Yasaka rubber.
Yeah.
So I switched to that, which is kind of just like a European like medium rubber.
Oh, so it's not
Um,
like a tacky,
it's not
right?
tacky. It's like European style. It's like softer, but I think on the forehand I'm using the Rox 7, which is like kind of medium, and then on my backhand I'm using the Rox 7 soft, which is like soft. So that's what I'm currently using. If I went back, I would probably start with a setup more like this. And I think that my backhand, the Rox 7 soft, is actually kind of similar to the Mark 5 and similar to the other rubber I used on my backhand, which was like it was called the Focus 3 Snipe, which was like a $10 rubber.
Yeah.
And those are all similar. And actually, I wonder thinking about it if the reason my backhand is better is because from the start I was using like I think good beginner backhand rubbers. And now I don't think I can blame the equipment for completely, but maybe it
See,
had a factor. The fact that I think on
see,
my
and this
forehand, yeah,
this is why I don't get too deep into the equipment personally. Once you just find something that works, just stick with it, I guess. But
yeah,
I think you bring up a good point, which is just how do you know that the equipment is doing you justice if you're not switching at all? But it's a tricky game to play because you don't want to switch too often. Otherwise, you're gonna be spending a lot of money, but you don't want to stick yourself in a place you don't want to be in, right? If you're using Hurricane 3 and like that might be the thing that's stopping you from advancing forward.
yeah. Totally makes sense. I think that's some good advice. So hopefully us talking about our equipment stories maybe helps out you fellow Chump players. I think I agree. I think what I have now with the Rux 7, and I didn't mention my blade. I'm using the Yasaka Malin Extra Offensive, which it is an all wood blade. And that is one thing I've kept consistent. That's the
Mhm.
blade I've been using for like 4 or 5 years now.
I actually switched my blade. I think I had like a carbon blade at some point, and then
Okay.
eventually I switched to a wooden blade based off of recommendation. Once again, I personally do not do my own research into equipment. I just listen to other people, and then if it feels good, then I just keep it forever. So
All right. So yeah, so you guys out there should definitely just listen to us.
yeah, totally take our recommendations and then never change ever again.
All right. Well, that's been a good equipment talk. Now, to end this podcast, let's go into our new segment, our new monthly segment, which is the Chump moment of the month.
Oh, what is this, Michael? This is
So,
new.
in this segment, we're each going to share just one thing from the past month where we've felt like a chump. And then maybe talk about how you improved from that. Maybe something you realized in your game, which you realized was causing you to be a chump, but now you're working on improving it. Or just something, you realize that you're a chump at and you're confused and you don't know what to do. But anyway, chump moment of the month. Got it, Jeremiah?
I do. Do you want to go first or
All
me?
right, I'll start with mine.
All right, go ahead.
Since we missed the last 3 months, I actually have a list of about five items. But here's one. I feel like such a chump. I think this was a key mistake I've been making on serve receives for like the past 5 years, basically since I started playing. And it is just like I just kind of randomly realized this, during practice with my practice partner, and realized that I feel like this is a lot better. And this is probably what most people just naturally do, but I've just been doing it wrong. And here's what it is. In table tennis, for the serve, you have to toss up the ball. Basically, when I'm on the serve receive, I was for years like watching the ball go up, right? So if you did a really high toss serve, I just like looked all the way
Just
up, then just watched that ball coming back
and get
down.
blinded by the light, right?
Yeah. Just watch that ball come back down. And then as that ball's coming down, I do understand to look at the contact, but like because I'm watching the ball and just like at the last moment looking at the contact, I was always like, gosh, that contact was so fast. I couldn't see what it was. I missed it. It's so hard. And just for years, I'm like, gosh, so hard to return serves. And it still is hard. But for some reason, I just got the realization, oh, wait, that ball's going like 15 feet in the air. I don't need to look at the ball. I know what's going to happen. Gravity is going to cause it to come back down. Like, why don't I just look at the guy's paddle? Okay, so I just keep looking at the paddle, and it makes so much sense, right? Then it's still hard. I mean, people do quick motions, and it's hard to see, but for sure, by
Fake
by
motions.
looking at their blade the whole time, I'm able to better see what the contact is. So I think that's at least somewhat of improvement in my serve receive. I'm
Yeah.
guessing, Jeremiah, like this is what you've been doing the whole time.
It has been, but you never know what other people are doing, right? Like when you're sitting there receiving serve, I don't know what you're looking at or doing, right? We could be doing totally different things, but think we're
Yeah.
doing the same thing.
Yep. So I just can't believe I never realized that in 5 years.
How did you
I was such a
how did you figure
chump.
this out? Was it just like you just randomly decided I don't want to track the ball this far? This
I
is
think
too much.
I mean, I think like I'm always trying to like when I'm practicing, just think about things to try different. And maybe eventually that just occurred to me. And I didn't particularly see anything, but when I realized that, I feel like I remembered like watching some videos years ago, or I don't think anyone ever suggested it to me, but I do feel like I heard that in videos, but it just didn't process. Sometimes like you're just watching some tips or hearing some tips, but it just doesn't completely process.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not a common tip I hear. I feel like if it was common and I heard it all the time, I would have gotten it. But I feel like I heard it here and there and it just glossed over my mind.
All
So
right.
that's my chump moment.
So for me, it's not necessarily a chump moment, but more of a fun story, right? So at the club, a guy comes in, never played with him before, he's new. And he comes in with a new paddle. He unboxes it right there. It's a Dick's Sporting Goods paddle, actually. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I actually started with that. And we get in a little conversation. So we start playing, and he's hitting the ball, and it's just really weird because his stroke, it's like the ball is just dying immediately, just hits the paddle and it dies right away. So he's like, can you look at my paddle? I don't know what's happening. So I look at it and it's like really glossy. It's like really glossy. And I was just like, do you still have like the plastic on here? Like he's still. So we find like a little corner of the plastic, and it was like really hard to pull off. So he felt uncomfortable, right? He felt uncomfortable where it was a he thought we were gonna like ruin
Mess
the
it up.
paddle. Yeah. So he's like, no, 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 don't do that. Don't do that. And I was like, I don't think that's supposed to be there. So we keep playing. He's still having the same problem, right? And at some point, the whole club starts looking into this. So I call somebody over and I say, hey, this isn't supposed to be here, right? This is just like a glossy plastic film. You're supposed to take this off. Everyone's in agreement, but it's on there really hard. So nobody wants to pull it too hard because he was concerned. Eventually, someone said, you know what, screw it. This is just one of those like manufactured paddles, right? I'll buy you a new one if it breaks it. And he just tears it off. And sure enough, yeah, it was just a plastic cover, but it was just a fun little story.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty fun. That's pretty interesting. And
Yeah.
and I feel like them manufacturing it like that is causing a lot of players to stay as chumps, because I bet he's not the only one. I bet some people are just like playing with their garage for
They
like
have
years
no
without
idea.
removing that.
Yeah. So the lesson learned here is if you buy one of those manufactured paddles, it's gonna probably have a plastic covering on it, making it look very shiny. Tear it off. All right.
Well,
So let's conclude.
it's been a good talk, Jeremiah. Hope you guys
Yep.
learned, or at least were entertained about our talk about equipment and our chump moment of the month. So we definitely hope to be back next month with another topic on table tennis, Chump to Champs.
Yep.
And we'll see you then.